and youth versus experience in the aftermath of that fantastic bout between Joshua and Klitschko. Big thank you for everyone who's got in touch throughout the week using the hashtag #FredSavSide. But before we get into the meat of this 3-course meal, what have we been getting up to this week? Robbie?
What would you be in a 3-course meal?
I'll be the veg.
The veg?
Veg, why?
The lettuce.
The lettuce.
The lettuce, the wet
salad.
lettuce.
What would you be, Fred?
Huh?
What would you be?
I'd be the beef.
The beef.
The beef in the middle. What about you, Rob?
I think I'd be a
Welsh
carrot.
lamb.
You-
Carrots?
Yeah, I don't know.
You'd be one of them pieces of green stuff they just put on top for dressing.
Well, no,
You know, them things that you don't eat. That's unnecessary on your plate. But they put it on to try and make it look good and it doesn't.
So be mean
You're
again.
the garnish, Robbie Savage. You're a garnish.
Anyway, Matthew.
So what have you been up to, right? You went to Bermuda,
I've been
didn't
to Bermuda, yes, I have.
He's a jet setter,
Yes.
Robbie
I know.
Savage. Bermuda.
Yeah, I went for a couple of nights, so to see Sir Ben Ainsley.
Here we go.
About
Bang!
the,
Pick it up,
Yeah.
pick it up,
sorry,
pick it up,
sorry,
Dame.
about the America's Cup. Obviously, my association with BT, the America's Cup
Yeah.
will be live on BT at the end of the month, and I've got to say, what a fantastic experience! Formula One on water. I wasn't much.
So it's pointless as well?
What?
So it's absolutely pointless?
How does it compare to Kiel service station?
Oh, don't start me off on this. I'd sooner go to Preston and sit by Canal and watch a bard. What's the point of the America's Cup? I don't even know it's happening. How much money do you spend on that?
1851 is invented, Fred.
And you get knighted.
1851.
It was invented. I think it's the longest sporting trophy that you can.
Did he still use telescopes and put them out? Land ahoy!
I've got to say-
Land ahoy!
It was an amazing experience. I actually went on the boat, the R1. It's called Rita the boat. Sitting behind.
Rita?
Yeah, it's called Rita the boat. It's called
Rita, hang
Rita.
on. How much did that boat cost?
A lot of money.
How much? 100 mil?
I don't. I've no
And they've
idea.
called it Rita. Oh,
no
my
idea.
word. Curry fans, are they? Curry fans?
Who's it named after?
Rita,
Rita.
runs the cabin on Coronation Street.
No, I've no
can't
idea.
be.
I've
The
no
second boat's
idea.
called Mavis.
I was on the R1 going 50, 60 knots on the water on the foils. It flies.
Oh,
What?
50 knots.
Seriously, yeah.
What do you mean it flies?
It flies. It flies.
It does. He's in the water. It's a
water.
boat race. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not an
It's
air
a
race.
hydrofoil.
What?
Robbie thinks tinfoil now in his oven.
But seriously, it was an amazing experience, and Great Britain have never won the America's
Never
Cup,
will.
and they've got an opportunity.
Have they?
Oracle have won it. They're the favourites. They're straight into the final.
Yeah.
So I'm going to watch it.
Just out of interest, before I come to Fred, what did you make of Ainsley? I've met him a couple of times. He's got a very interesting, almost obsessive personality.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah.
You know, 4-time Olympic gold medalist in sailing.
That'll impress Fred.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should have him in for an England cricket team. team
Very.
Is it a step up or a step down from rowing?
I would say it's a step up, wouldn't it?
You don't do it. You just stand there.
I tell you what, you'd be a good sailor.
Well, I don't doubt it.
A grinder.
Grinder. That's something completely different.
They do grinder.
That's like a version of Tinder, isn't it? Grinder.
So you got grinders on the boat. And you know the
Been on
arm.
Grinder. I thought you were happily married.
Well,
It's getting hotter in here.
the grinder, you do grinding. And I tell you what, physically, they're athletes, those guys on that boat. Great experience. America's Cup 26.
And an amazing comeback like 2 years ago. One of the greatest
8-1
sporting
down.
history.
He went on the
Amazing.
American boat
Yeah.
and won 9-8.
Fred.
I don't know where to start, Matthew. I've had a busy week. I've started working again. Photo shoots beginning of the week. Trip to Malta for this new show I'm doing, Cannonball, with the press.
Photo shoots, yeah, a white van driver.
A what?
A white van driver.
Easy for you to say.
Not going well so far.
You were in the paper. Somebody had to go to you for filming.
I was, yeah. But something happened where we were doing a shot in the northern quarter of Manchester, dressed in these very nice three-piece suits. I could tell you where, but it's the BBC. You can get them, but they're lovely. So we had to do a shot, and a white van man parked his van. And I was oblivious to this. So someone's asked him to move. There's got a bit of argy-bargy. Then I've stepped in for a photograph and missed it all. And then some reporter was hanging around because Peaky Blinders was being filmed in the next street. So there's a few press around and that. And then I got this write-up about this white van man having an altercation. But to be honest with you, in the pictures, it's all good for the brand. The suit looked lovely.
I reckon you phoned the guy up and said, I'm going to be there. That's why come and take a photo of me.
I am the male Helen Flanagan. That's
what-
exactly what I did.
What's the show about?
The show, it's like, it's a water-based assault course. Loads of fun, loads of messing about, brilliant. But then yesterday, Matthew, I played football. I turned my ankle's a bit swollen, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to lie. I played at Preston North End, I had the game of my life at centre-half. The game of my
I
life.
seen the commentator give you man of the match.
Goal line clearances. It's like, that's him, Derek Swift, well renowned. Proper pundit, Derek. He knows his stuff.
Give Freddie man of the match.
But do you know what happened after the game? I was in my car driving home thinking that when I was on this show a few weeks ago, I did myself a disservice when I said I was 10,000 hours away from playing for United. You can change that to 4,000. I was good. And I'm probably 500 hours away from Arsenal.
Who was you playing against?
Huh? These lads. They bid online. It was for prostate cancer. Simon Grayson, the Preston manager, has a game every year. Few ex-Preston players, couple of faces, and these lads bid online to play. So they were like decent footballers, like young lads running around. But if you read a game, you don't need pace.
And you read the game brilliantly.
I have to be told what to do. I had a good man next to me.
What have you done, Matthew?
So the high point of my week was I went on an aircraft simulator.
Okay.
So this is an EasyJet simulator. And it was unbelievable. You go into what looks like a cockpit, and then he created this scenario where we're coming into Venice Airport, low clouds, totally realistic. They've both nodded off. And then they had a plane coming in at 1:00, and it had these pilot and co-pilot who were being trained. They had to deal with an incoming aircraft, air traffic control going crazy, all of these lights dialing up. It was incredibly realistic and really interesting to see how, in aviation, how brilliantly they work as a team. Co-pilot went to the checklist. The pilot himself did something.
Matthew, can you email him his story, please?
I'm not sure this will make the radio, Matthew.
No, but what's going to happen? Okay. What's going to happen now is he's going to just drop his book in black box thinking. That's what. Was that who it was for?
Okay, topic number one.
Well, a minute, Matthew.
Dressing room bust-ups.
Ooh.
So, Robbie, you've had a few bust-ups in your time. You've had a few occasions where you've fallen out with teammates. We've talked about the importance of team spirit, but can bust-ups sometimes be good for a team?
Yes, they can. I've had a couple of occasions when I've had a couple of fights, believe it or not.
Yep.
Fights?
Yeah, Fred.
Really? Proper fights?
Well, not proper fights, just altercations. There was one with Nickel Vasson, who was a goalkeeper at Birmingham. Because of my, I would say, banter and dressing room camaraderie. I'd look for any little fault in anybody. And I remember Nico struggled to kick the ball. Over
he's a footballer. He struggled to kick the ball.
But he was a good goalkeeper, Nico. Nice fella as well. On this one occasion, I just kept on and on and on, and we were in the change room, and I said something about he couldn't. Was it a gale force wind today or something? I kept going on. Anyway, he stood up and he come over to me. I'm sitting on the bench, and he's grabbed me by the throat. So I thought, oh no, what do I do? He was 6'6". I was sitting down. Wow. So as I've got up, I've put my head up to his chin, and he cut his lip. And then a bit of an altercation.
Did you headbutt him? Was it an headbutt?
Well, it was like, when you're sitting down, he was towered over me. As I've got up, I've hit my head up and hit him on the chin.
Did you quiff go up his nose?
I did have a quiff as long. And obviously we had to see the manager, and it was Steve Bruce, and it was like, and in a way, I knew because of my position at the football club at the time that nothing would happen to me because I was player of the year. I was a favourite, fans' favourite, and I was in a strong position. And maybe I went a bit too far because I even go up the stairs to see the manager. I was winding him up, saying, "Well, me or you? Yeah. I'm not going to play with you again." Still winding him up, and it all got sorted out. That was one occasion, but it was just where banter went a bit too far from my point of view. And then Clinton Morrison, we had a fight over a mobile phone.
What?
Yeah, but because
did he have more data than you?
Because as a footballer, you always wanted the new gadget. You always wanted the next best thing. So these phones come out, and I said to Clinton, "I can get you one of those phones." So he said, "Oh, brilliant!" Anyway, I got him the phone. It was a couple of £100, and then a couple of weeks passed, and I said, "Just bring us that £200 in, will you, Clinton?" And he went, "All right." And it didn't come. So one morning we're having breakfast, and I said, "Listen, bring me the money now. I'm getting a bit fed up." He went, "No, what are you going to do about it?" So I launched at him over the table, and there was collapsible tables, and the table collapsed in the canteen, and we had a little scuffle, and that. Yeah, but
was there any punches thrown?
Well, like a scuffle.
Or was it just a bit of a wrestle?
Bit of a wrestle, but Clinton's a great fella. Get on, and that probably cleared the air between us. Yeah. So sometimes you have a little scuffle, they bring people together.
How common, in your experience in football, how common was it for teammates to actually come to blows?
I've seen a few fights. Yeah, Yeah, I can't. I'm not going to mention names. But yeah, come to blows.
Come on,
Yeah,
mention
no
a
credit.
name.
I've seen managers.
Give us a name, Rob.
I've seen managers.
Just one.
I can't. I've
Come
seen
on.
managers grabbing players by the throat against the wall.
Oh, but we don't know who it is, or what's the point? Why are you telling us? Tell us who it is.
I can't.
Come
can I?
on.
I'm
Come
not
on,
allowed
Robbie.
to. I'm not allowed to. But the producer's telling me I'm not allowed to. But on the other hand, it's happened to me where I believe, there were stories about me when I went to Derby County and had a nice car. And people forget, when I went to Derby, I'd been successful in the Premier League for a number of years, 10 years in the Premier League. So when I turned up at Derby, I had a nice car. And when Derby was struggling, there was somebody in the changing room who were telling stories.
Who was it?
Honestly, I do not know, but saying, Robbie Savage, who does he think he is? He comes in his dressing room with X, Y, and Z, and he's driving around in a £160,000 car. And this was obviously off I'm just putting that out there.
One car?
It was on finance. It was on finance. Yeah, it was a couple £100 a month. It wasn't. I didn't pay that much for the car. It was on finance.
Was it a big balloon at the end?
A big balloon. I never get to the balloon.
No, me neither.
I never get to the balloon. I always give it back before the balloon.
What, they repossess it?
Well, not yet. So I've had jealous teammates, I believe. And I think there's a point, Matthew, in dressing rooms where there is a line, because you can get to a point where you would feel that you're bullying somebody, bullying a teammate. And that's where I always stop, because, in the dressing rooms, and Freddie will probably elaborate on this, that there's certain characters where you can go for, and which might sound wrong, and there's certain characters that can take a little bit, but then you've got to step back.
Yeah. And
at times, people might have thought in the dressing room I was a bully, but I wasn't. I was just trying to get the team spirit, the togetherness, but it does end in bust up sometimes, and name calling, and in dressing rooms, and in any other walk of life. If the language used in dressing rooms to each other, the obscenities thrown at each other, if that was in a normal everyday work environment, you'd be sacked.
the HR department would get
if there's an HR department,
But in cricket, I'm guessing that when you go on those long tours, you can go stir crazy. You're stuck together with a group of people for weeks at a time.
By the end of it, you can't stand the sight of people.
Right.
You can't. And then what happens is you spend time with different groups of people. There's people that you get on with. Like for me, it was Steve Armisen and a couple of others. And I spend all my time with Steve. And then some of them I just see when we practice or play. I don't want to spend time with them. But in the cricket culture, there was never... I remember like seeing videos of football managers and they go around shouting and screaming. And that wasn't really cricket. You spend so much time with people. I once had a bit of a bust-up with Peter Moores, who he took over as England coach after Duncan Fletcher. And I love Peter Moores and I like working under him. And we was in India. And Sahara were the big sponsor, and they've got this like village, and they put a party on just for the England team. And we were sat there, and I could smell money. There was money knocking about. So the waiter come over and he said, "Would you like a drink?" I said, "Yes, please. Could I have a bottle of 96 Dom Perignon, please?" And he just said, "Yeah." I thought, hang on. Whoa, here we go. We're in here, lads. And then he brought the Dom Perignon. Me and Steve Armisen, army drinking Dom Perignon. It's like teaching a dog to sing this. He's there, right? And he's drinking Dom Perignon with his finger up. And then we had one bottle, we had two bottles, and I think KP joined us, and then Peter Moores joined us, who was the coach. Then Hugh Morris, who ran the ECB at the time, joined us, and we got through a case of Dom Perignon. So I asked for another bottle. He said, "Sorry, sir, we've only got Moet." I said, "Oh, rummy now, I'm going to have to rough it." So they brought a bottle of Moet, and then it was left. There was me, Harmy, Peter Moores, and Hugh Morris. And we got into like a heated discussion about something, the state of cricket or whatever's going on. And Peter Moores, I said something, and Peter Moores said to me, "If I had £1 for every time you said that, I'd be a rich man." So I turned around to Pete and said, "If I had £1 for every time you put your hand on your hip when you're addressing us, I'd be very rich." Right? He had this little pause, and I really liked Pete. And then, what I can relate of it, we went at each other. Not like fighting, but it got a bit heated between the two of us. And then Hugh and Army stepped in and went to bed. Woke up the next morning, and then you think, I was a bit dusty, and we're getting the bus early, and I'm thinking, oh no, I had a row with Pete last night. I thought I've had one coach I can't get on with, and now Peter Moores, I really like him.
You mean Duncan Fletcher?
Yeah, I really like him. This is poor form, and everyone's getting on the bus, and Morsey was at front as everyone's getting on the bus. And I was walking towards him, and he had the biggest grin on his face as I was walking to him. And we didn't even say anything. We just nodded at each other, shook our heads, and then our relationship was back on track. It was great.
I had a phone call once, and I was in my car, and again, for obvious reasons, I can't say it was his. But,
not another one of these stories with nobody in it.
You know what it's like? I don't want to be labelled. What's it?
Labelled?
Oh, libelled. I don't want to be libelled. I had a phone call in my car, and it was a former associate offering me out in a car park.
In a car park?
He said, I'll meet you. Let's meet in a car park. Let's meet in a car park.
He might have wanted to go dogging. He might have been a voyeur.
I'm not sure it's quite that, Fred.
Especially in your nice car. They're a nightmare to clean them Lamborghinis.
It was a Friday, Fred. I've had that. You know, I've had associates offering me out and said, listen, let's put this to bed and I'll meet you in a car park of your choice. So I've had that.
You could choose the venue.
I said, what are you talking
NCP.
About? Absolute nonsense. But the dressing room, Matthew, is a place where, you know, I've seen it all. You know, players hammering the manager. Next minute, you go to the training ground, they're like, don't say a word.
But I would have thought the manager is somebody trying to keep the peace, trying to keep all of the people in his team on an even keel. But you've given us a couple of examples where the manager gets involved. He's grabbed a player by the throat or got grabbed by the throat by one of the players. How does that work?
No, I've never seen a manager get grabbed by the throat. I've seen.
Well, Joey Barton told a story on A League of Their Own with Mark Hughes. We had a beef with Mark Hughes and walked in the dressing room and locked the door behind him and said, "Come on, then."
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how much truth in that, but that's what Joey said. I wouldn't do that to Mark Hughes, would you?
No.
A bit fiery.
So, mate, dressing room bust-ups. I think it happens all the time, and you know, I've seen fights on training grounds. You know, and it happens all the time. But depending on who you are, and you know, if you're liked, it won't be reported to an extent. You know about this, Matthew. If you're not liked, it gets blown up into out of all proportion. You must have seen that as a journalist, and I think you've alluded to it before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struck by the fact that Wenger, when he talks about having his team in a dressing room before a match, he wants calmness. He wants them on an even keel. That's how he likes to be before he goes out to watch a game of football. But I remember going to Northampton, the rugby club, and I talked to some of the props. They wanted to get into a state of frenzy. They would get into a huddle before they went out onto the field of play and build each other up until they got angry so that they could express their energy out there. So I wonder whether or not you actually want to have a bit of grit, a bit of gristle in a dressing room.
Yeah, I've nearly got knocked out twice, and you might sound surprised by that.
I'm totally not surprised.
I thought you'd have had a granite chin. Yeah, I'm really surprised.
You know, on the two occasions where I thought I'm in a bit of trouble here, where my banter went too far, or my willingness to get the best out of my teammates went too far. It was when I was at Derby, I was shocking. I was terrible. The season when we got 11 points, we played Manchester United. I was having a tough time. I was getting hammered off the fans. I was not earning. I think I was one of the highest paid at Derby, and I went in straight as captain. That was a bit, for me, it was a great honour, but a bit embarrassing that these teammates, this team has got this new guy and he's got the armband straight away. Yeah. So I was on the back foot straight away. I was crap, didn't perform, and then played Manchester United at home, and I had a great game. I did have a good game, world class, in fact, you could say.
Did you touch the ball or just run around with someone?
I touched the ball, actually, not many times. And I remember Andy Todd, who's a very good friend of mine, who is a tough guy, great fella, tough guy, and he tried to let the ball run out. A player nipped him, passed it to Ronaldo, they won the game 1-0. So after the game, because I had a good game, I was thinking, I had to go to Toddy for everybody. And he got up and he threw his water bottle at the wall, smashed everywhere, and his eyes had gone. I thought, oh dear, I'm in trouble here. And he got in the shower. I was next to him. He didn't speak to me. I rung on the way home, didn't answer his phone. And on the Monday, he said, I've calmed down. He said, if that was anybody else, he said, I'd have levered you. He said, because it's you and I know what you like, don't do it again. And then Big Darren Moore. Remember Darren Moore?
Yeah.
6'5", centre half, strongest, biggest man in the world. Yeah. Blackburn for Derby once again. Had a good game. Coming after the game, I said, Morrow, why we've got beat? Why are you letting the ball bounce? Don't let the ball bounce, mate. And he's sitting next to me, and he stood up and he looked over at me and he went, pointed at me. He went, I'll see you Monday. Oh, I thought, oh no. Anyway, I tried ringing him over the weekend. nothing. And he's come, and he's
Did he not say see you next Tuesday?
yeah. And he's come in, and again he said, you know, you've apologised, I'll accept it, but again, if it was anybody else.
But you're big enough to say, you know, in table tennis, I don't think.
But it all kicks off, doesn't it? Oh, there we go. There'll be some fighting stories here. Ooh, oh, he flicked the net. Oh, here we go. They're piling
Edge of the
It's a
table.
rumble. There's Douglas. Oh, he's hard as nails.
Good to
Carl
see it.
Preem, what a fighter.
Yeah. I think the only time I saw two people almost coming to blows was Preen.
Hey.
And do you remember Chen Xinhua?
Yes.
Chinese player, came over to England, married an English woman.
Pencil
Robbie
grip.
shaking his head.
I know.
He didn't have a penhold
No?
grip. Played with the shake hands grip. Pimples on the backhand.
Shake
Good forehand.
hands grip. Oh.
Yeah, so you got the penholder grip, often used in China, and then you got the shake hands grip, the one that you used against
Right.
me in the challenge.
Right.
But him and Preen had a falling out over a team selection. This is as bad as it got in table tennis. Preen called him a chicken head, and Chen Xinhua stormed out of the room. That was it.
Is that it?
I've never seen a fight. I've never seen people come to blows, except for once at the Reading Closed, circa 1982, when Andy Wellman and Big Jim Stokes
Oh, you don't
had
have to
a
tell
fight.
me. I
in the
remember, Matthew. I remember. You don't have to tell me.
But we didn't see any of that. In cricket, have you ever seen players going at each other physically?
Yeah, not really. You know, verbally, and then it's got a bit spilt over. I think Javid Miandad once tried to hit someone with a bat.
That was on the pitch, wasn't it?
That was on the pitch. I got dealt with by Nasser Hussain once. This is an embarrassing story. We had a team night out in South Africa in 2000. It was in this restaurant, and it was like a team do, so everyone's just going to get on it. So we've all got smashed. It was like the restaurant's empty now. It's just the team, and everyone's messing about. I think someone fell through a table, and all sorts are happening. And I've been needling Nasser all night because he was good sport needling Nasser at times. And then, but
Was he quite serious?
yeah, and he's got a bit of a temper on him, and he didn't know how to take me. I was going to say then, but he doesn't now. And it got to the point, surprise, I was very drunk. I'm probably about 10 sambucas in and 6 tequilas and the red wine and the beer. And I'm on this couch, and I've needled him too far. And he jumped on top of me, right? He's on top of me, and he's pinned me down, and I couldn't move. I was so drunk and not sure where I was, and I was looking up at Nasser Hussain, who was frothing at the mouth. His eyes had gone, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get punched here by Nasser Hussain. This is so embarrassing. And he'd gone. And another one I saw go once was Michael Atherton. Michael Atherton. Yeah, it was brilliant. Remember, we played a famous game. I was 12th man in Karachi. And we ended up beating Pakistan. It was in the dark. And then afterwards, you have the match presentation. So all the teams are stood in front of this ceremony. I'm stood next to Goffey having a laugh. Michael Atherton stood in front of us. And you know the game we play in the gym, the shorts game, whip the pants down?
Yeah.
Well, Mike stood there just watching the presentation party. And me and Goffey are deliberating whether we should do him because we can see his cord's undone. And we're thinking, oh, this would be brilliant, this would be brilliant. And it was who's going to do it first. Goffey went forward. He pulled his pants around his ankles he's got little Mike hanging out. He's got no undies on because he's got the lining in his shorts. No. So he pulls his pants up and he's like looking round. He's like so embarrassed. And he turns around to Goffey, and me and Goffey are in fits of laughter. He turns around to Goffey and says, if you ever do that, I will effing kill you. It's like, that's Mike Atherton, right? And then me and Goffey just laughing. We walked back to the dressing room, and fair play to others. He came up to that Goffey and both of us and says, lads, I'm sorry. I just had a sense of humour failure for a minute. But it was the best bagging I've ever seen.
Do you know what? You nearly got me on that when I was playing in that challenge match. I didn't have any undies on. I only had the shorts.
You're too busy fist pumping Matthew in that. But
So Robbie,
you were fist
The
pumping.
Tim Edmund. The Tim Edmund.
Tim Edmund.
Come on, Tim.
The final one from me was our Christmas do at Leicester. You know, the Secret Santa.
Yeah.
So the lads were going to have a Secret Santa. Anyway, it didn't happen. So we go for our Christmas do. We're all sitting down for a meal. And then all of a sudden, we had Dennis Wise at Leicester. And he didn't have the best time. You know, he's a fantastic player, great captain for Chelsea, and a good fella. This is the thing. We got on really well. And then we're sitting down for our Christmas dinner. And all of a sudden, Dennis got up onto the stage and he said, right, everybody, I've bought a Secret Santa for Sav. So this is like, well, hang on a minute. It wasn't supposed to happen. So he said, yeah, I just wanted to get a Secret Santa for Sav. So he got out of his pocket. So he bought a sex toy Yeah, he'd bought a sex toy. Yeah. And you know the little kits you get from the club shops where you stick them in your window? It's a miniature kit. So in your car...
Oh, yeah,
you put them in your, so if you support Leicester, you'd have the miniature kit stuck in the car window. So what he'd done, he got the Leicester kit, the miniature one, and put it on the sex toy, and he held it up, and he had like put blonde kind of stuff.
Quite good, that, to be fair.
I like
That's
it.
quite good.
And he put, to be fair, Sav, I've got you this present because you're the only. What's the word I'm looking for?
No idea.
You're the only expletive
Uh-huh.
in a Leicester kit. And I looked at him and thought, well, that's a bit out of order.
Yeah.
That could have been very funny.
Yeah, but
That could have been very funny. But
With the lads wetting themselves.
I think so. And it was, for me, it was I was embarrassed. So obviously,
was it not big enough?
It was far bigger because I was quite impressed with it. Actually, I was buzzing. So obviously, I thought I'm not having that. Bang, out of order. So I can't remember what happened. So anyway, I was raging. I wanted to fight him. I wanted to have a fight with Dennis Wise, and then Matt Elliott split it all up, calmed down, and then we were mates again.
So you actually went up and went at him.
Well,
physically.
No, I wanted to. I've said to Matt, that's bang out of order. I was eating me roast beef, and I was like,
this sounds like a very middle class fight.
But, do you know what I mean? I was like thinking, I've got to get him back. What can I do?
Did he stick a second one on for the nose?
But I just thought, and I was embarrassed, and I wanted to go at him. I wanted to fight him, but that would have been gone in all the papers, and we calmed down, and we were mates, and we seen each other on holiday. So
if you were a football manager, if you're the head of the England cricket team, and you were overseeing a group of young men, would you want them to have complete serenity, no fights, no bust-ups, or do you think banter and the occasional argument is actually quite a healthy thing?
No, I want a bit of fire in them. I want a bit of fire in them. I want a bit of competition in the team for places. I want them to be comfortable. I want to have some fire in their bellies. The problem is, like with cricket, you know, when a team's losing and then all of a sudden everyone's falling out, and then you have these clear the air meetings. And nobody says, nobody says, it's like, we're clearing area.
It's so true.
I witnessed one in football, right?
True.
I did a bit of training. I was in the pub one day, and there was, all my stories were in the pub, and there was a few football managers. There was Big Sam, Phil Brown, I think Peter Reid was in there, and Stam Tennant, who was at Burnley at the time.
Good fella, Stan.
And we've had a few drinks, and I wanted to start training the next day or the day after. And I said, well, come and train with us. So I had the pick of like Bolton, wherever. And I picked Burnley because I like Stan. So I turned up the first day. I drove to Turfmoor, and he said, come in the office, Fred. So I'm sat there. He gets a packet of fags out. He says, you want a cigarette? I said, well, I don't really smoke, but I'll have the odd one. He says, Fred, have a cigarette. So I said, I'll go on then, I'll have a cigarette. So we're in his office, smoking. And he said, Fred, tell me about cricket. I said, what? He said, tell me about cricket. I spend all day with footballers. I want a conversation about something else. Tell me about cricket. Tell me about Tendulkar. So we sat in the office for an hour, got through a packet, and he says, come on then, we'll go training now. So we turn up, and I know like academies like United and City have these massive places. This is like a tin hut on a park. And we go in, he says, right, go in there with lads, they'll look after you. So I sit in the room with the lads, and they got me the worst kit out of lost property. I'll go with it. And then they're going through a few problems. So in the dressing room, everyone's saying, oh, the manager's this, the manager's that. And I'll never forget, Robbie Blake.
Yeah.
He was their big signing. They paid a lot of money for him. And he was having either not playing well or carrying on a bit. And he's saying, oh, stands this, stands that. When he comes in and we'll have this meeting, I'm going to tell him, I'm going to do this, that and the other. Then they're all jumping in, yeah, we'll do this. Stan walks in. He says, anybody got something to say? Nobody said anything, right? And then he says, right, you lot, we're playing bad, we're doing this, that. He just goes around pointing at people. I felt a bit awkward, a bit uncomfortable. And he turns around to Robbie and says, and you, we all pee in the same pot at this club. You need to start peeing in our pot. And he's just sat there, didn't say, oh, goes through his tactics, walks out. Nobody says, oh, as soon as he left the room, oh, I was going to say this to him, I was going to say that to him. It's like, nobody said up.
That's one of the...
I've been in meetings in cricket where it's exactly the same. They've all got these beefs. You say, well, what is it? Nothing.
That's one of the reasons why I don't believe I played for Wales, because John Toshack come in.
Yep.
He was... I believe he was quite critical towards us as a team under Mark Hughes when we done ever so well.
Mm-hmm.
he was a pundit on the TV and he had the right of his opinion. It was his opinion. And then I remember he took over and it was football had developed, the nutrition, the training, the sports science. It developed, and Mark Hughes developed it with us. So we had all the food was brilliant, and remember Mr. Toshak come in and changed the food instantly. It was like fried bananas and the chicken was dry. And it was, I know this
happened in cricket. That happened as well.
No, it changed.
Don't tell me they changed the Lord's prawn cocktail, steak and chips.
No, but
Louisiana.
Love bite. He changed the food. So anyway, all the lads were saying, "Hang on, we've gone from like 10 choices, all this catered for us, to one choice." Ridiculous. And there was big personalities in that Wales squad. So I said, right, come on, boys, we've got to say something here. This is unacceptable. So we had a meeting. So John's had a conversation, and he said, anybody got anything to say? So I went, yeah, me, John, Mr. Toshak, boss, whatever I called him. Gaffer. I went, the food, the game's moved on. Yeah. We can't go from what we were having to this. One shot, one choice. People might think this is bizarre. Listen to this.
No,
but it's true.
And the chicken was dry.
Yeah, no sauce.
Oh no, no, Robbie, no
sauce. No.
Oh no,
dreadful.
As an athlete, Matthew, because you're training hard every day, you've got to repair.
Did you pull through?
The food's very.
Was you all right?
I was all right. I put my hand up and I said, "Listen."
Well, at least you had the courage to do that.
I had the courage to do it, and do you know what?
You should have had courage to eat a dry chicken.
Without
do you know what? I was the one who spoke up, and Fred's alluded to. I was the one who spoke up. Nobody else said a word.
Bottlers.
Nobody else said a word. And I'm looking round after thinking, hang on a minute.
Was Toshak big enough to take the criticism?
Well, I didn't play for Wales ever again.
Wow.
Because over a chicken?
Well, not over a chicken, but obviously I was the one who stood up and spoke to the group, and I wasn't even the captain.
Do you know what? I joke about it, but I used to kick off like you've never seen about the food. Because it started off, you could have what you want. Fridays at Old Trafford, fish and chip Friday, for your lunch. And then all of a sudden, these dietitians came in and ruined it. Dry chicken. We used to call it sawdust chicken at Old Trafford. This chicken would come in, it'd be like a chicken.
What, chicken?
And then they sprinkle, not a sauce, but they sprinkle a bit of tandoori on it. You'd have to drink like a litre of water to get it down. I used to kick off, and it sounds daft and it sounds terrible. If you've had 2.5 hours in a field, just stood there playing pocket billiards, when you come in, you want something to eat that you like. Yeah. Don't give me pasta. Don't give me a chicken. Yeah. Put some sauce on it. Put some sauce on it and a few carbs. Give me a potato.
The nutritionists didn't get on top of your Lord's diet, did they?
No, that was untouchable. Because if it had carried on, I'd have been one stop away from getting a delivery. Getting a delivery. But just to finish my Burnley story, I didn't say this, just on the football thing. Yeah. We then went training, I scored the winner in training. That was it.
You scored the winner in training?
Yeah, just slipped one under Beresford. And then Stan then got everyone together. And he said, this is how bad you lot are. A 2-bit cricketer has scored the winner in training.
The England football team, Capello came in and he banned mobile phones from the dinner table. He banned ketchup. And that was where the rebellion came from in South Africa, wasn't it? During the World Cup.
Like little things.
Yeah. Amazing.
Little things, ketchup.
That dressing room's just so important. So important. It's the hub of anything. And I liked... you will get falling outs, but the thing is with sportsmen, you will probably, as Freddie's alluded to with Mr. Moores on the bus, you have an argument. If you have a fight, that's it. Move on. You're best of mates the next time.
Sounds to me you want energy in a dressing room. You want people to be open and honest with each other, but people to be big enough to take criticism without it becoming a huge falling out.
It's like a marriage, isn't it? A marriage. Oh, your marriage, you have the odd bust up, don't you?
Odd.
But
the odd one.
No, but that means you care. That means you care. You're passionate about something.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
You're listening to a BBC 5 Live podcast.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
If you like this, you might also like this.
606, the UK's biggest football debate.
You can use all the excuses imaginable. These guys get paid a lot of money.
To find out more about our range of podcasts, click, tap or swipe bbc.co.uk/5 Live.
Okay, topic number 2. Youth or experience. Freddie, this is yours.
Well, in light of the fight on Saturday night, Anthony Joshua and Wladimir Klitshcko, everyone talking about the fight. Klitschko, 60-odd fights, a wealth of experience. Is it going to be too much for AJ? 18 fights going into it.
Yep.
Never really been tested, but fresh, younger, probably fitter. You'd imagine with the age difference. So, what I want to know is experience. And this is a double-edged one, Rob. If you look back as you, as a young man, what advice would you give yourself?
You go first. I'll think about that. That's good.
Go on,
Let me
Matthew,
just jump in with one thing on experience, because I'm a great believer in experience. You learn new things, tactics, how to deal with different kinds of opponent. But I've got to tell you, one thing was a problem for me as I got older. I knew what the consequences were. If I went onto the court and I had a big match, I knew that if I won, I got paid. I kept my lottery funding.
Yeah.
It would be good for my long-term future. If I lost, that could be in jeopardy. And because I knew the consequences, I was old enough to recognise the significance of what I was doing. It made me a little bit more nervous. When I was younger, I didn't have all of the tactical and technical experience that I probably would have got when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, but I was fearless. I went on and I played, believe it or not, 9 major finals, 4 national championships, 3 Commonwealth men's singles finals, 2 international opens, and won 8 out of 9. Because I'd go on there, I wouldn't
You've been
think
wanting
about
to tell us that for weeks, haven't you?
Exactly.
That is
I've
well
been
drilled.
saving it up. So I think there's a balance between those two things. I think that experience has massive advantages, but in my personal experience, I found youth gave me a sense of fearlessness, a sense of clarity that I lost a little bit as I got older.
I will come back at you there and say in my career, it was the other way around. When I was younger, I was very much aware of consequence. I was aware of, you say you're fearless, you go into something with open eyes and no baggage. Mm-hmm. But I found as I got older, I became fearless. And even so now to this point where I wish I was playing cricket now. I wish I had the opportunity to have this head. I was going to say my younger body, but my body's probably better now. But be able to do the things I could have done when I was younger. Because I don't know what it was. When I was younger, I was quite unsure of myself. I felt like I was always in the wrong position. I felt like, how am I here? Why am I here? And I look around at people around me and think, I'm not sure that I should be doing this. And then through performance and starting to do better, I gained confidence, I gained experience. And I think one of the big things was having kids.
Yeah.
Because I had kids, and all of a sudden, cricket, although it was massively important, was not the most important thing in my life.
Interesting.
And I realised that if I have a bad day, even though I would hate it, even though I'd beat myself up, and I do that on good days as well, I'll go home, my family still love me, I'll get a cuddle off the kids, and the sun comes up tomorrow. So it changed a little bit.
Interesting, because you said about the funding, you were fearless. At what point were you fearless? The younger you were. You were fearless the older you got. Were you fearless because financially, when the older you were, you earn the money, so you become fearless when you're financially okay?
Yeah, possibly, but also as well, for me, through performing and through doing well, I built up this bank of confidence. And then I realised, actually, this game isn't about the opposition. This game's about me. And I found that out too late. And when I was 31, when I retired, I was at my best. As a bowler, I was at my best. My action had changed. I'd had a period of time where I'd bowled, I'd figured out what I was doing. My batting suffered just through injuries. But as a bowler, I was far better at 31 than I was at 20. I didn't really bowl at 20. So, yeah, I wish that when I was... Now, if I could go back and look at that 18-year-old lad who's half decent, who can play a bit of cricket, I'd have so much advice. I'd say, well...
What would you say to him?
I'd say, go home a bit earlier. Go home. Don't have that drink. You know, I'd have a word about that. I'd say from a younger age, get in the gym and train.
Yeah.
But that's a double-edged sword because it wasn't really around then. We didn't train. But I'd advise on that. And also I'd say, the amount of time that you spend... later in your career, early 20s, in the gym or practicing, but then neglected the mental side of the game. You know, you can build all your muscles up and you can build your technique up. Yep. But I realised when I was probably after the Ashes 2005, after that, I realised that this game was all about mental. It does not matter who I'm playing against. Put in Ricky Ponting, Sachin Tendulkar, Brian Lara, or the worst batter in the world. It doesn't matter. It's all about me. It's all about where my head is, how I feel. And if I'd have found that out younger, I'd be a far better player.
Do you think if you found out younger, you would have been the best in the world?
Yeah.
Are you saying he wasn't?
No, I wasn't.
No, he was world class. We've done that. But when you talk about the greats,
hindsight is a phenomenal thing, because you talked about you should have played in midfield instead of up front. Yeah. But that's what happened. And then you look at through a career, and it's not like I struggle when people talk about choices or regrets, because when you're in a moment, you take that decision. Yeah. Whether it's right or wrong, instinctively or whatever, you take that decision which you think is right, or circumstance dictate the decision you make, whether it's wrong. So you don't really have a choice, but you look back with a clear head at the end of your career, and you look at all the things you could have done or should have done, and yeah, I'd change my career drastically.
One thing that you said really struck me powerfully is, I was saying when I got older, I thought of the consequences, and I'd get a bit more nervous. The way that I got over that as a sportsman and in my media life is by doing what you did, seeing that life is bigger than just sport. It's bigger than just journalism. You've got your parents, you've got your children, you've got your family. And that takes the pressure off. You have a wider, broader perspective. And I think that helps a lot when you're in a real crux moment. Robbie, if you could rewind the clock and give your younger self some advice.
Use the experience. I think in football it might be slightly different, because I would say in football look at Wayne Rooney. Yep. People talk about Wayne Rooney. What a player he has been, yeah? But now he's getting a bit of criticism because he's not the Wayne Rooney he used to be, I believe, because he's lost that sharpness. Yeah. So for me, youth and experience in football is a difficult one, because some people say, look at players who have got... Teddy Sheringham, for instance, when he went to Manchester United, that was probably one of his best spells of his career, even though, he was a lot older. But on Teddy Sheringham, he never had pace, really. Mm-hmm. He was always in the right place at the right time. He was playing with better players at Manchester United. So I think that all helps. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. Players who are physically...
How would you put Wes Morgan into that?
Well, Wes Morgan is... I don't think he's changed in the way he plays. Mm-hmm. Okay, he won the league with Leicester. He's played in the Champions League. But he was a wholehearted defender who threw his head in front of everything, who tackled everything. Never been rapidly quick. He's played in a team which has had this one unbelievable season, and people say he's got better with age, but the whole team has created a miracle, which he was part of. If Wes Morgan played like that next year or the year before, when he was in the Championship, he'd probably done the same. Uh-huh. But because this team, it magnified them by winning the league, people say I just think for one season, they all performed at an unbelievable level.
But just thinking about the question that Freddie posed, you're older, you're wiser, you got more experience. When you're a young man, you didn't have any of the benefits of that experience. What would you tell that young man, that 14-year-old now, in order to help them have a better career?
Well, I think I couldn't have had a better career. What would I tell me?
Really? But you said in a previous podcast, if you'd have played in a different position, you could have been a Champions League winner. You could have played Champions League.
Probably, but in terms of, I think you've alluded to it, with me, I went to bed early. I didn't drink. Mm-hmm. I lived my life right. Mm-hmm. I was dedicated, like we all have been in our professional sports. So because I've got the best out of each individual, in everything I had. Surely,
your haircut.
Yeah. I'd have probably said, don't go on the sunbed as often. I know that's dangerous. Don't have that don't dye your hair as often. Don't buy those stupid cars you bought. Make a fool of yourself. Don't wear
didn't know, did you?
Don't wear ridiculous clothes.
But I think that's
Robbie's
amazing.
That's all part of you.
Yeah, that is you. That's your character.
Right. But what would I tell the 14-year-old? I think the only one I might have done, because my body, I was 9 stone when I played football. Yeah. 9.5 stone. I was very thin but then I think if I'd have said to that 14-year-old, go in the gym every day, get strong, get big, I probably wouldn't be able to run as much as I did because that was my game.
I think there's something incredible about the fact you can look back on your entire football career and know that you maximised it. You did everything you needed to do to be the player that you became. There's something wonderful about that. I am. That's fantastic.
I'm slightly envious of that.
But that is, don't you think that is Robbie in a nutshell? He does everything he can to maximise his
you've said that if you look back at your 14 or 16-year-old self, you drunk a lot. So when I said, what I mean,
I think I know what you're alluding to. And do you know what?
That's you though.
But this is like a double-edged sword for me, because on one hand, people will say to me, "Well, if you wouldn't have lived like that and you wouldn't have done this and that, just think how good you could have been." Right? So my kids now, my boys, they have it tough because all the mistakes that I made, I don't want them to make, and I probably get it wrong a little bit because I'm so hard on them. However, I say however a lot, don't I? But
I say you know a lot.
I know. Hey, boom, boom.
I say Black Block's thinking a lot.
All right, bounce boy. Anyway, so I didn't even know what I was saying then. But do you know when you talk about the lifestyle and the drinking?
Because
I remember when I started doing it. I remember I was on Guernsey. I was in Guernsey. I went as a young lad, and we had an under-season trip to Guernsey. And I thought it was a competitive game, but I quickly realised it wasn't. And all the team were playing drinking games with Guinness, and I was on the outside a little bit, and it was all kicking off. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have a bit of this. I mean, get me a pint of Guinness. And then they give me a Guinness, and I'll go down it. So I just downed it. And I downed another one, and another one. And then they were looking at me thinking, you don't drink this. I look at him, and I think, you know what, I'm good at this. I am good at this. I am Champions League at this. Then all of a sudden, I was part of the gang. I was part of the team. And everyone's now talking about me. And from being that shy kid who didn't speak or was just on the outside, all of a sudden I'm in the thick of it. You know, Neil Fairbrother's loving this. You know, all these lads are loving it. So then I took on this persona and character.
Yep.
And although drink, and I'm not advocating people to drink, it was all part of my makeup. And I did drink a lot at times, and other times I drank less than what I made out because it was all part of the mystique. And it was like, how does he do it? And he's not had any sleep. And well, I have actually, but there was other times when I didn't. So I don't know if it helped or hindered. So it's not something which I think about all the time, thinking, oh, I could have been this, could have been that, because I'm genuinely quite happy.
When you were going through that period of drinking and camaraderie and that personality you're projecting, did you ever think to yourself, that's not really who I am? Or did you think you actually became that person?
I think for a period of time, I believed it. I believed I can do this. You know, I remember when I got 100 in the Ashes at Trent Bridge, I had about 10 pints. And just sat in the bar, I didn't go out for dinner, so I had 10 pints with people. And then went out and bowled the next day. And I remember last day of the Ashes, or second to last day, I was playing at the Oval. And it was Neil Fairbrother came down for dinner. I booked a table at the Ivy with me and my missus, him and his missus. I think it was someone's birthday. So we had a few bottles of red. And then I ordered a pudding. He said, you having a pudding? I said, you know what I've bowled 12 overs tonight. And then tomorrow, I need some energy. I'm not going to stop bowling until they're out. And he looks at me and says, I believe you. So I turned up the next morning. I had it all planned. We got to the Oval. Usually I was last in. I got in early. So I drove him. When the Aussies were getting off the team bus, I wanted him to see me. So I waited. And I'm not advocating smoking here by any chance, but I did have the odd cigarette. So I was outside and I was having a cigarette, and they were walking past. I went, morning lads, you all right? Hi, morning. They're looking at me. And then I ran up the stairs. I got up to the top of the stairs. There's a corridor at the back of the dressing room. And I stood there. So when they walked past, to go to the dressing room, walked past me, I go, morning lads, you all right? All right, go on. All right, Irish, yeah, good day, because they were under the pump. Got in the dressing room. I got a coffee, I got changed, sat at the top, outside. I had another cigarette and a cup of coffee in my hand, watched them out go warming up. Our team are warming up already. They've walked past me. I'm going, morning lads, all right, lovely day, isn't it? Lovely day, this. And they're all looking at me. I went out on the pitch. Our team, I hated warm-ups. They're warming up. So I walked over, I got a ball out of our bag. And then I could see Glenn McGrath and Brett Lee were bowling to Adam Gilchrist. And I bowled all day the previous night, and I was going to bowl the next morning. So rather than warm up with our team, I went over to the Aussies. I said, lads, do you mind if I just join in? Because our lads are still playing football and messing about, and I just want to get back in, bowl a couple of balls, and I'm done. And they looked at me bemused and said, yeah, mate. So I got my ball, I marked my run up, and I came hurtling in. I was so stiff and sore. I was so stiff, but I thought, I've got to do this. I came hurtling in. I pinged one through Adam Gilchrist. He's taking it above his head, throw me the ball back. I said, cheers, lads, that'll do me. Just rolled my ball away and walked off. And as I'm walking past, I want someone to say something. Do you know, like you're walking and you think, come on, someone say something. And Glenn McGrath said, hey, mate, do you ever get stiff? I said, I'd never heard of it. What is it? And then and I thought at that point, I've got you lot. And I walked up to the dressing room. I just collapsed in a heap and then went out and bowled them out the next day. So when you talk about using things,
That is so smart.
I used it a little bit because it was like a pivotal point.
What were your bowling figures that day?
I bowled them out. Yeah, I got Aiden out pretty early. I got 5 wickets. Did all right. But then there's stories where it didn't come off. But that old drinking and that mystique and that was all part of the act.
What would you tell a younger Matthew Syed?
I think I'd say don't over-respond to criticism. When I was England #1, the in-house table tennis, believe it or
You're
not,
not mentioning it much.
the in-house table tennis magazine was called Table Tennis News, readership of 1,000. And occasionally they would criticise me. And there would be a journalist, John Woodford of the Daily Telegraph, who would take a pop. And I'd go to bed and I'd be thinking, how can I get back at Woodford? What could I do to get that son of a gun? And I would dwell on it, and I would stew, and I would hold a grudge. And that didn't benefit me at all. Didn't do anything for me. Me thinking all of these thoughts about how I'd get back at John Woodford, who's a perfectly decent guy doing his job. So I'd say when people criticise you, they often have good reason. Sometimes it's personal, but don't hold a grudge. Doesn't do anything for you.
Not on the youth and experience one then, about the fight the weekend.
Yeah.
Joshua against Klitschko. You were there, Matthew. Youth won, obviously stopping him. But in a fight between Tyson Fury and Joshua, I'd love to see that fight. Who do you think would win? Because you would say Tyson Fury would be the more experienced man.
Yeah.
And youth, he's only late 20s.
Is he?
Well, I think that Joshua's a fantastic fighter. Great ring craft, the courage that he showed to get off the canvas in the 6th round to go on to defeat somebody who was past his best, Klitschko. I think we have to acknowledge that.
I disagree with you straight away. I think Anthony Joshua on the weekend was unbelievable. I thought he was fantastic. Everyone going into the fight, nobody could call it. Everyone was saying who's going to win. Nobody knows. Anthony Joshua, he's strong, he's powerful. Great ring craft. No. I think that's the side of experience where he will gain that. Everybody's straight, left, right, left hook. Klitschko, very, very similar. But then Klitschko, you think, can he punch Klitschko? Klitschko's got this wealth of experience. He's been with older fighters. And is he going to be able to get hold of him? And ultimately, he did. However, again, with Joshua, he's youthful, he's fit, he's strong. He's gaining experience and getting better. But what I would say is, in Robbie's question, is he was calling out Tyson Fury at the end of the fight. Be careful what you wish for.
He'll beat.
He's only had 6 more fights, Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
But his performance in Germany, in Klitschko's backyard, he toyed with Klitschko, Tyson Fury.
He had his hands behind his back at one point.
Let's not forget Joshua, an Olympic champion, fantastic amateur career. Unbeaten as a professional.
Ollie Harrison.
Knocked out with every... Yeah, no, that's true. But
he only started boxing in 28. He was a bricklayer. 2008. He started boxing. 2012, he was a gold medalist.
Yep.
He's brilliant.
He's inexperienced. Brilliant. The one thing which, whether you want to talk about youth experience, one of the things which was so impressive about him on the weekend was his heart.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Massive,
at one point,
brilliant.
I was watching it and I was loving the fight, but at times it was one of them where you couldn't watch. It was like Klitschko goes down and he gets up and you got this great of boxing and you felt for the fella. And I found myself at one point wanting Klitschko to win.
And wasn't he brilliant?
Yeah, but then the next minute you got Anthony Joshua. He's out on his feet, then he's down on the canvas, and you want Joshua to win.
Yeah.
And the way in which Anthony Joshua dug deep as a professional sportsman and someone who, I prided myself a little bit on that. That was just it was amazing. He was out on his feet at one point. He couldn't do it.
You think Tyson Fury would beat Joshua?
Do you know what? The hardest thing now... I'll tell you. The hardest thing now with this is Anthony Joshua, he gave that speech at the end and I'm sure adrenaline was going, and I don't think you should look too much into interviews at the end of a bout because he's been punched in the head, he's been on the canvas, he's just won, there's 90,000 people, you get caught up in it. I've done it to a lesser extent, not boxing but cricket, where you're all revved up. And he calls Fury out. But with Joshua, having seen him on the weekend, he's not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination. He's going to get better and better and better. And at this moment in time, I would not fight Tyson Fury if I was Anthony Joshua. I'd go and beat up Wilder, which he'll do in his sleep. I reckon Tony Bellew would beat Wilder.
Really?
Yeah, I reckon Bellew would beat Wilder. I know he's egging for that fight. I'd back Bellew every day of the week. I think Anthony Joshua will destroy him. He's too big. He's too strong. I'd take that fight with Wilder now, unify the division, have one champion with all the belts. Then after that, Tyson Fury. But then there is the other argument, right? Tyson Fury's been inactive. You look at him, you look at the size of him.
Yep.
He's back on the pads and he's training out in Marbella, I think he is, and he's such a good fighter. Is it a good time now? Get Tyson Fury in the ring. Will Tyson Fury be better having get the ring rust out? But as it stands, and I don't want to back against AJ because I've met him, he's been on our show, and I think he's absolutely brilliant. But I think Tyson Fury is an amazing, amazing fighter. Whether it's the things he says or his background, he'll never get the credit he deserves. But you saw him against Klitschko. He toyed with Klitschko for 12 rounds. He had his hands behind his back. He punches from funny angles. Klitschko for Joshua was a perfect fighter. He's straight. He stands in front of him. When you go at him, Klitschko panics. Even with all that experience, panics. You got Fury. He throws lefts from funny. He throws rights. He won't stand in front. He's taller. He's longer. It'd be an intriguing fight.
You're going for Fury. Think of the experience. Muhammad Ali against George Foreman. Rumble in the Jungle, 1974. Ali was 32. He was up against a stronger opponent, but he was brilliant. He was on the ropes. He was leaning against the ropes. He was taking the punches on his shoulders rather than his chin. Foreman punched himself out. Ali knocked him out in the 8th round. I think that Joshua will reach his peak in about 3 years' time.
I agree.
More experience, he'll take on a number of opponents. I agree, perhaps he should wait before taking on Tyson Fury. But I think if he fights Tyson Fury in 3 years' time, he'll win.
That's a different fight. That's a different fight.
But I'm also going to say,
a different fight from
I agree
now
with
calling
that.
him out.
Completely agree with that. But I also think if they were to go head-to-head now, Joshua would take him.
No.
Robbie?
Listen, my knowledge of boxing is very limited. You know, Freddie's undefeated chap guy. And
I'll have a go. I'll take him.
He's undefeated. Freddie,
I'll take him.
one fight, one win.
Mate, if one of them windmills of mine catch him, he's going out
Matthew,
for the count.
you watch boxing, you write about boxing. So my knowledge is just watching Tyson Fury against Klitschko and watching Joshua against Klitschko. The Joshua-Klitschko fight was better to watch. And Joshua, what a champion. You know, he's a superstar, probably the most famous sportsman in Britain at this time. Sports personality now, surely, is
Whoa.
What?
That's if he has his belts by the time you vote. It's not till December.
Okay. Well, I still think it's a very fair point, Andrew. But as a novice and a neutral watching, looking at Fury's performance in Germany, the way he had his hands behind his back and the way he boxed, I would say Tyson Fury.
Fantastic performance.
But the amazing thing about Joshua was everyone said he's going to come out the first 3 rounds. And then Klitschko landed a right on him early doors. And I think that was a reality check for Anthony Joshua. He then realised, hang on a minute, I can't just be what... But then, after a while, he reverted back to what he knew. He went down. And Bellew was on. I thought Bellew had a great night on comms. I thought he was brilliant. He called the 11th round stoppage, more or less, saying what he should do. He called when Fury.
Klitschko.
So he called when Anthony Joshua, he's at his best. You saw him in the round where he knocked Klitschko down and ultimately stopped it. He came out and went forward at him. Didn't care about what was coming back at him, just kept throwing. And that's when he's at his best. But I'm not sure he'll be able to do that to Tyson Fury.
As a journalist then, when Tyson Fury went to Germany and won the title, which is incredible, which is, for me, was bigger than Joshua beating Klitschko at Wembley. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, a lot of pressure on Joshua, 90,000 people. But we've seen in the newspapers, front page, back page, AJ, what a fight, what a champion. When Fury won it, I didn't see hardly anything. Why is that?
I think it's unfair to say that there wasn't anything.
Okay, there was not as much.
I did
I
a
might be
column
wrong.
on Fury after that bout. I was deeply impressed. I agree with you, Fred. He's a fantastic boxer, really smart, great ring
Manny
craft.
Stewart said he'd be one of the best of all time.
Yeah, marvellous. And I did a column. I thought it was also really refreshing after that bout. Didn't he sing a love song?
It was brilliant. I was in Melbourne in a sports bar. I was singing along with him.
Yeah,
Matthew, my point is, why didn't Tyson Fury's win and an incredible win get as much publicity, front and back pages, as Anthony Joshua's win?
I think you're right. There has been much more exposure for the Joshua victory. I think that's probably wrong. I don't think it's wrong that Joshua's got so much publicity because the fight was at Wembley. There was a 90,000 crowd. I was in the stands. There was a massive public excitement. In Richmond, apparently you couldn't get from the High Street up to Paradise Road because the
too many Rolls Royces.
They'd all spilled out.
There's a fox hunt.
Too much Dom Perignon on the side of the road.
Yeah. They'd spilled out of the Angel in Crown, and you couldn't actually go up this little cut through. So I think that fight captured the public imagination. I also think that it was a better bout, but I agree with you. Tyson Fury didn't get as much coverage as he deserved for what was a fantastic video. Let me just put one other quick point. You obviously have an explanation.
I don't know. I'm asking you why. You're a journalist.
I don't know. I think it's a pity.
I got a theory. Well, boxing historically, and I've delved into it a little bit.
Right, undefeated.
I don't like to bang on about it, but me and Floyd Mayweather.
Rocky Marciano
has been a bit of a dark sport where it's got all its failings, and around it, it's not nice to be around. All of a sudden, you've got this bloke who's won Olympic gold, looks fantastic, he's fit, he's had his troubles in his life and seems to have come through them. He's the poster boy of boxing. And I'm going about Tony Bellew here again, and I never thought I'd be doing this. He put a tweet out saying, all boxers or Anthony Joshua or something after this. Because boxing is back in the light. It's someone that, even though you're punching people, kids can look up to. He's a proper role model. And I think it's right that he's getting all the adulation. He's getting the contracts and the sponsorship deals, which come with the trappings of being successful. But I think that's why everyone's got someone. We had it with Frank Bruno. Everyone got behind Frank Bruno. You had the Benders and the Eubank. But this lad now, he's someone to look up to. He's a role model, and people are celebrating that. And I think journalism, where people are very quick to have a go at people and put people down, I think it's right that we're now talking positive about somebody who's doing great things.
But I think it's an interesting point Robbie raises about why didn't Tyson Fury get as much coverage, and maybe there is an issue, and I think that would be a great one for another time. People who haven't got the recognition they fully deserve, because that has really hit home with me, Robbie.
But you don't think you got the recognition you deserve, Matthew?
I think Douglas got more than me. It's totally unfair.
So can we just finish this Freddie's topic by saying the one thing you would tell the younger you?
I would say to myself, relax. It's going to be all right.
Don't hold grudges. Don't overreact to criticism. Be who you are and put all of that negativity out of your mind.
And I'd say to a young 14-year-old me, do not do anything different because you maximised every single ounce of ability you ever had.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Next topic, and this follows the story of Jeff Stelling having a rant about Dave Jones, the Hartlepool manager. He argued that he should be sacked. So the question we're asking now is, have you ever used your position, your celebrity, as a well-known journalist in my case, or sporting icon in Freddie's case, and ex-sportsman in Robbie's, to abuse your position?
So this is your top, Matthew. You know, as a journalist and a presenter, because you present this, you know, on the Jeff Stelling thing, you know, for people who haven't heard it, shall I read out to you what was said? So he said on his Saturday afternoon show.
Can you do it in his voice and his excitement?
Come on.
Go on.
He's from Hartlepool, is he? From Hartlepool, is he?
Why, does that make a difference to the accent you're going to do?
We lost at home.
Whoa, where is he from? Hartlepool?
I love it.
We lost at home? Hartlepool?
Why, we lost at home, man. We're in the relegation as well.
It's a bit Welsh, a bit Indian, a bit Jamaican.
I'm trying to do a Geordie accent. Well, I don't know if he is Geordie.
Geordie?
I don't know where he is from. So anyway, he said, for people listening on the podcast...
Go on, try it one more time. Go on, one more. Go on.
We lost at home.
That was all right, Go on.
So he said...
Go on, do it. No, I don't want it in that. Come on.
We lost at home.
No.
We're in the relegation places. This is not personal, Dave. But Dave Jones, for God's sake, for the good of the club, walk now. Go now. You've got 13 points from 51. This is not your level of football. Pam Duxbury, who's the financial director, the chairman, Gary Coxall, if he won't walk, sack him. If it means me retire and resign as president, I do so happily. Do it now. Do it today. I think, personally, that's an absolute disgrace.
Why?
Because he is using his... this is my opinion. He is on a Saturday afternoon show, which everybody watches. Mm-hmm. I think he is, obviously, the president of the football club. Do it behind closed doors, Matthew. Do it in the boardroom. Do it.
Robbie.
Don't do it on national... He's got his opinion. He's the presenter of that football show. I just think that's completely and utterly wrong. You've got a man in a job... You've got a man in a job and the president of the football club on live TV as a presenter, not a pundit. He's asking the questions. He's a presenter. He's a very good presenter. But saying to sack a man live on TV, I think that's an absolute disgrace and a joke.
If he wasn't the president of the club and he had expressed an honest opinion on television in exactly the way that Robbie Savage does, week after week, you call out players who have underperformed. You call for players to get sacked or not sacked, to get dropped from a team.
You can't say if he's not president of the club. He is president of the club.
It's that juxtaposition. Somebody in a position of response.
Move it around to suit your argument.
Fine.
He is president of that club.
So that's the issue for you. It's not saying something live on TV because you're somebody who's got that platform. Expressing an honest opinion, it's when you are somebody's employer that you're not supposed to do it. You don't mind if it had been a pundit, you wouldn't have minded. Calling for somebody to be sacked is okay, but you don't want it to happen if they're part of the institution that employs a particular person.
I just think as a pundit, you are paid to give your opinion and your what you think. And I'm on 606. I'm of the mindset, you know. Why I don't like saying managers should be sacked because...
Have you done it?
Have I done it? I've probably said it, you know, I would probably get rid of him. But I would back it up. I would back it up in terms of... So, for instance, Louis van Gaal at Manchester United, the style of football was poor. The Manchester United fans, they went on the edge of their seats watching it. You know, OK, he won the FA Cup, but their league form wasn't great. And imagine Manchester United now, and I didn't think, you know, Louis van Gaal should have been in that job, but I didn't say you've got to sack him. Yeah. And I wasn't associated to Manchester United in a role of related to the football club. I'm a pundit paid to do that. But would you hear? Let me ask you a question then. You know, on 5 Live, on BT, of the presenter saying the presenter I'm talking about, he's not paid for his opinion, is he? Am I wrong? As a presenter, are you paid to give your opinion?
I mean, what am I here? Am I a pundit or a presenter? I introduce the show. I do that little opening bit of script. I would feel very uncomfortable if I didn't
think anyone's a pundit on. This is different.
3 guys having a chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to relate this to...
Do you think he'd be...
someone being a presenter. We talk about topics and we give our opinion. That's the whole thing on the... I think what Robbie's saying is that Jeff Stelling, he's brilliant. That show he does on a Saturday.
He's superb, isn't he?
Yeah, he's excitable. He gets involved in it.
BT Sport Score.
Obviously not. No. I've never... Yeah. But I think... I don't have a problem with him offering an opinion as such. I think the problem with this is his association to the club. Yeah. He is a figurehead of that club. He knows the ins and outs, the comings and goings. And I think the way in which he puts it across, it's not like they're having a shocker, we need to change. It's like, sack him. It's almost like it's almost like the mob, isn't it?
Well, I was going to say,
like a lynch mob.
What made me really uncomfortable watching it is he clearly had lost his cool. This wasn't like somebody thinking rationally what would be the right thing to say. He was sounding off. He was having a go. He was having a pop. And I don't think that he had done it in a way that he'd perhaps want to have done if he looked back.
Do you think he'll be happy with it now?
No, I think he'll probably be quite disappointed.
Could you imagine Gary Lineker on Match of the Day?
Ranieri.
Yeah. Just say if Gary Lineker would have been in the boat of Leicester City, just because Gary was very supportive of Ranieri, Leicester fan, but Gary's position on Match of the Day, the most watched football show, do you think Gary Lineker, if you were sitting at home watching Match of the Day and Gary Lineker, just say he was in that camp where he wanted Ranieri out, and he was sitting there, 5 million viewers, whatever it is, and said, right, Leicester City, to the chairman, to the board, Sack him now. How would you have felt watching that?
It's interesting because if I was
That's wrong.
Yeah, I think that would be. But if I was the producer, let me explain. If I was the producer of Match of the Day, at the moment there is a clear division between Lineker as presenter, who extracts the opinions of the two pundits who offer their opinions. So there's a clear division of labour between them. I think Match of the Day, in a funny kind of way, would be better because Lineker's a fantastic presenter, but he also has a great deal of knowledge about football if he actually expressed some opinion. No, I'm saying, what I'm saying, Robbie, is I think it would be a stronger programme if Lineker did express his opinions. If he did it today on the Match of the Day, as we've become accustomed to, it would be ridiculous. At some point in the future, if Lineker, a former Leicester player, a fantastic pundit, somebody who knows stuff about sport, has an opinion.
To say sack the manager?
I want him to express it.
You want him to say sack the manager?
If he genuinely believes it and he has a substantive argument to back it up.
Nonsense.
Robbie, you have made a living expressing honest views.
I'm a pundit.
Fine, but that's the point that I'm making.
I think this is a slightly different thing from both of you. I agree with Matthew in some ways. Not that I'm an avid watcher of Match of the Day, but I'd like to hear Gary's opinion instead of some of the Herberts they have on. But on the same side, do you know what? If Gary Lineker offered an opinion and it was a strong opinion, I can't imagine Gary Lineker going off one, losing his cool and going on about it. Yep. And if he did, I think, that's Gary Lineker. This lad's played at Leicester, he's played at Tottenham, he's played for Barcelona, he's played for England. Jeff Stelling... No, I like Jeff Stelling. I think he's a brilliant presenter. However, I feel uncomfortable. I didn't watch it live. I've seen the clip on Twitter, and I felt uncomfortable in the way in which he did that. Because the one thing is, right, you have a football manager or you have someone doing a job, and I've done it a couple of times at pundits, right, like quite playfully, but with a loaded message. And then you think to yourself, well, if my opinion or having a go at someone there leads to him losing his job, how's that going to make me feel? This fella, whatever job you're doing, is doing the best that they can. They're trying to provide for families, they're trying to do this, that. So he's gone from Hartlepool, he's lost his job.
2 or 3 days later.
Is that 2 or 3 days later? So what does Jeff Stelling do now? Does he go home? Does he go to the ground and high-five everyone? Surely, I don't get it. This is the problem with football.
You're sticking up for him here, aren't you?
I just think that if you are in the public eye and you are paid... I mean, Stelling is paid to present. I get the point you're making there. But if you're a pundit or a journalist and you're paid to express an opinion, then I think you ought to express it honestly and boldly. And you don't hold back. I mean, you have fans up and down the country saying, sack the manager, sack the manager. People get involved. This is part of the soap operatic nature of football. On 606, you get people calling in and saying, sack the manager. And Freddie, imagine if every single pundit said, we must never sack any managers. That wouldn't create a particular...
He's not a pundit.
No, but that bit I get, that you're saying as a presenter he shouldn't have expressed an opinion. But presumably you agree that pundits should be...
Do you know what? There's expressing an opinion.
Yeah, he did it too.
And then he did it too vociferously.
Love it.
He's a Hartlepool fan, isn't he? Matthew, has he, from a journalistic point of view, has he crossed the line there?
It'd be interesting to see what he says about it now.
Yes or no?
I think that if he genuinely believed what he said and wasn't just sounding off in the heat of the moment,
passionate.
If it was a heat of the moment response that he now regrets, I think he should say to himself that was a mistake. He should publicly apologise. If, on the other hand, he thinks that was a genuine, legitimate view and that this manager is destroying the club and he can back that up with substantive arguments, then he may be able to defend it. I would need to hear what the arguments are supporting the claim that he made on the telly. But it seems absolutely hypocritical for you as a pundit who has made a living expressing candid and honest opinions that have often been negative about people, for you to suddenly turn around and say Jeff Stelling is completely out of order.
I thought he was bang out of order. I might be hypocritical with me, but I'm paid to give my opinion as a pundit. Pundit, not a presenter.
Have you ever, when you've expressed a strong opinion on a player or a manager, had comeback? Have they come back and said that's ridiculous?
Yes, Theo Walcott rung me up at half-time in a game. I said something like that, Theo Walcott, very good player. I think he should be producing more crosses. His final ball's got to be better. And he phoned me up at half-time in the game. He was obviously...
Was he playing?
He was obviously watching it at home. He was that injured. It was an analysis. And he said, I think you should check your facts. what you're talking about. He said, if you look, I've set up 8 or 9 of, I can't remember who it was, Robbie Van Persie, or I can't remember the player it was, whoever was playing for Arsenal when he was crossing the ball in. I'm not sure it was Robbie Van Persie. And he said, check your facts. And I went through my facts again, and to be fair, he had a point. So I have been.
Back to you, Matthew. Hang on, Rob. Back to you, Matthew.
It's like a game of ping pong.
It's brilliant. This is like tennis here. It's the middle.
Let me just acknowledge something that I think I do really agree with. That if you're going to say something really nasty about somebody, call for their sacking, might affect their lives, their livelihoods, you really need to think carefully about whether you're prepared to say it. And occasionally, you've seen, I write quite bold columns from time to time.
I bet John Terry's your best mate, isn't he?
Exactly. And I do feel that there is a responsibility to make sure. I got tweeted this week by a friend, a mutual.
So just a quick one. You know that John Terry piece? Is there any, do you know when you've written that and put it out, is there any feeling, do you put it out tentatively? Or do you put it out there thinking, bang, have that?
In that particular column, so just to let the listeners know, I criticised John Terry after he'd announced that he was leaving Chelsea.
You listed his misdemeanors, didn't you?
All of the misdemeanors, the fact that he wasn't prepared to take responsibility for them. I don't mind people making mistakes as long as they're... I think that's moral cowardice. You do things that are wrong, you own up to it, you fess up, and then you grow as a person. And I thought that it was a legitimate criticism of somebody who was traded on his image as a leader and a legend in order to make a lot of money, and I thought that it was right to point this out. But as I was writing the piece, I did take a step back and think, is this fair? How would I feel if I was him? Can I justify what I'm saying? And occasionally, as a journalist, you unquestionably, particularly against a tight deadline, you go too far and you say something and you've got real
Do you think you went too far there? How did you feel? Because I must admit, sometimes, I'm not a journalist, but on social media, I'll write something I'm going to put, and then I'll deliberate, I'm getting your thing here.
However.
And I'll think about it, and then sometimes I'll delete it and think, I'm not putting that out. And then other times, I'll press send, and I'll think, should I have done that? I'm not sure if I wanted that out there. Yeah. What was you thinking when you've written that piece? It's all good to go. You're going to send it to your editor. What was going through your head?
That one, I thought it was a fair analysis. But with previous columns, I've written them. I felt very passionately while I've been typing it up into the laptop. I've sent it, and I've woke up the next morning and I thought, goodness me, what are people going to say about that? Have I written something that I can put my hand on my heart and say that was fair? And I know what you mean about tweeting. I think when you send an email to a large group of people, it's often a good idea just to sit back and think, do I really want to say what I'm saying? Because once it's out there in black and white, Jeff Stelling, that's on YouTube now forever.
Yeah.
Somebody's lost his job. If he can't justify what he said, he's going to feel a great deal of guilt going forward. And that's why, look, I don't think we're disagreeing that much. I agree that presenters shouldn't express an opinion. I think pundits should express strong, provocative opinions. But you should never say things or write things or tweet things or email things in the heat of the moment, because otherwise you're going to end up regretting it.
Well, that's what you put wasn't in the heat of the moment.
No.
Sometimes, when you write a tweet, right, you put something on, someone's upset you, a company haven't performed, and I've done it, and I've stopped doing it a little bit, where you criticise them, right? So you say, this, that, and the other, I've had to sit and we've been delayed.
When they overbooked flight.
Yeah, things like that. Well, you did that, didn't you?
Yeah.
But when you wrote that piece about John, was it, because some people are brave in print and brave on emails, would you say that to his face?
Well, it would be difficult to hold his attention long enough to get all 1,100 words out.
No, but would you, if you was interviewing him face to face?
Oh, yes, I would.
Would you?
Yeah, I would.
And
oh, yeah, absolutely. I've written negative things about people, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it with him or with anyone else that I've criticised. I do think I would want to back it up face to face.
So that's a difference.
I think it'd be difficult in a social occasion. If you bumped into him.
Yeah.
But if it was a situation like this, then yes, I think I would be. And I'm pretty sure, I can't ventriloquise for you, but you would be prepared to back up the arguments that you make if you came face to face with a player that you criticise.
Jeff's argument, you've got 13 points from 51. This is not your level of football. That's what his argument is, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because Dave Jones has been a very good manager, but I think he has managed at that level years ago, Stockport County. Yeah. But that's it. Obviously, his argument I thought was wrong. Have you ever abused your position as a celebrity #sportsman?
Right, in what way?
Anyway.
I did it the other week.
What?
Well, I got on fast track at the airport.
How did you do that?
Well, I was going somewhere. Where was I going? I can't remember where I was going. I was flying somewhere, and it was Easter holidays, and queue's massive. I don't have fast track, so I went over to the man at fast track. Hey mate, you all right? How do you get into this fast track? Do I need to pay or something like 10, 20 quid? Oh no, Fred, you're all right. I knew that was going to happen. And he just let me through. I'd done it in nightclubs, bars, front at queue. But it's harder these days because there's not too many English people on the doors. You know, I remember with Goffey, we went to London once after a game, and there's this fancy nightclub. And we got to the front, Goffey's like, leave this to me, I'll sort this out. So we get to the front, sounds like Jeffrey Boycott as well. And he says to the bouncer, we've just been playing a test match. At that point, the Atomic Kitten girls just get the barrier open straight in. And they weren't letting us in. And Goffey goes, oh, what about us? He says, I've been on This Is Your Life. I'll go home and get the big red book if you want. And they won't let us in. You must have abused your position.
Yeah, it happened the other week when I was at Cheltenham. The betting firm I'm a patron for. They had a box, and I was with my friends, and I spoke to Philip, who works there, and he said, "Come and see us." So I had my cap on, flat cap, my sunglasses. I went up, didn't have a pass, the right pass, so I've stood by the door, and the guy said, "Can I see your pass, please?" I went, "Oh, I've just got to go and see Philip from William Hill." He said, "Can I see your pass?" And I had my sunglasses on, so I took my hat off. And I stood there. He went, "Can I see your pass?" I took my sunglasses off. And he said, "Can I see your pass?" I went, it's me. And he went, "No, didn't let me in. Didn't let me through." I was stood there thinking, and there was people there thinking, oh, I was just hoping.
You just want the great world to take you.
I was just hoping like a few people recognise me.
Yeah, I've done that.
A photo. Oh yeah, I was asking for photos with people. Do
you know? Say if you're trying to get in somewhere, you're trying to do something, you're trying to get something. What I'll do is this is pathetic. I don't know why I'm saying this. I'll weigh up the people who are in the position of power. And in my head, I will decide which one of these is going to recognise me. So, for instance, I'll look at it, right? Say I've got the wrong train ticket or whatever it may be. I'll get to the front at Euston, and they've got all them cubicles, haven't they? And I've missed my train, and I need to get my train change without paying any more money, right? Because I'm on cheapest train, but I don't want to get the cheapest train. So I look up them, and I'll look at people, and I'll think, well, there's no chance she's going to recognise me. She's not into cricket. And then you see a fella like you go, nah, he's not going to recognise me. He's from Europe or Eastern Europe. And then I'll be honest with you, I'll find like that he's my best bet. Yeah. You look at a guy cricket, he's an Asian game Indian fella, so I think he's my best option here. So I always go to him. It's terrible. I had one at Lord's, right? I was at Lord's a few weeks ago.
You've never Googled yourself, have you?
Oh, don't, Rob.
You haven't. You haven't Googled yourself
twice.
No.
Right, no, listen. Why am I doing this? I feel like you. Right. I was at Lord's the other week, and the kids are playing in this indoor cricket tournament. And we get to London, and we check in the hotel, and we got next door to Lord's is the tavern, and there's a function in the tavern starting about 8 o'clock for the kids to have dinner and all the teams. So they got the team, they got the parents, and we're staying at the hotel across the road, and we're walking down, everyone's saying, "Oh, Lords, look at it. I said, "Oh, we'll go in. Come on, we'll go in. There's probably a function on in the long room. We can go in there. I'll take you in the dressing rooms." Thinking, I've got this covered, I can do this. So we walk up to the Grace Gates, the posh gates, and I look, and in the hut there, I don't know anyone. I think it's all right. No, it's all right. So I go up to this woman. I've never seen her before in my life. She says, "Have you got a pass?" I goes, "No, but I'm a life member. I'm a life member of this place. Have you got your book on you?" I says, "No, I've not got my book." And I'm like stood there like looking at us as if they say, "Come on, it's me. Come on, what do you mean? You're working at Lord, you know who I am." And she's like, "You can't go in if you've not got your pass." I said, "Oh, God." So all the kids are now at the Grace Gates and all the parents are behind, and I can see that. So I'm committed here. I've got to get us in. I can't not get us in. So I've gone over to her and says, "Look, I actually used to play a bit for England, and I was captain. I used to be captain." And then I've looked round because there used to be a big, massive picture of me with a quote on the side. So I've looked round to point to this quote. It's been taken down. I'm not even on it. It was Andrew Strauss, so I can't even use that. So I'm saying, look, I just want to take him in. I just want to show him. And she's saying, you're not going to pass. So I thought, what do I do? What do I do here? So I put in my search engine, Google, Andrew Flintoff, and I'm trying not to let all the other parents see it. So I'm showing her, look, that's me. Look, I'm playing cricket here. And she said, you're not going to pass. I says, look, do me a favour. Can you just get someone down here who might know me? Please. So then this woman come, and she goes, oh, are you Fred? You all right? I go, come here.
It happens all the time as well. You know, when you're in a restaurant. So my wife, I say, just phone up a restaurant and book us a table for 2 on Saturday night, 8 o'clock. Oh, she said, we've left it too late. It's the last minute. We'll never get a table. I said, just ring. So she'll ring me back. Can't get in. Fully booked. So I said, I'll ring. What did you say? She said, Mrs. Savage. I said, let me ring. So then I'll ring up and I'll say, hi, can I have a table for 2, please, on Saturday night, 8 o'clock? Sorry, Mr. Savage. Sorry, she'll say, sorry. No, can I have the name, please? I'll say, yeah, Mr. Savage.
And they say, we're definitely booked.
Yeah, and then she'll go, sorry, Mr. Savage. I'll say, is the manager there, please? It's Robbie Savage. and then she'll go and get the manager. Sorry. Fully booked.
And it doesn't help.
It doesn't help. It's going to front of the queues. You'll stand there. You'll see a massive queue, and in a wherever you are in a nightclub. Years ago, when you were playing Premier League football, you walk to the front of the queue, and you'd be trying to catch one of the bouncers' eyes, and you'd be standing there thinking, and it's the walk of shame when you have to go.
I've had that one.
Go back. So I think we do try and abuse our position as I'm not a celebrity.
But you guys are. I mean, when we hang around outside the studio, people will come up and ask for photographs. You do have recognition, although we're in a sports broadcaster here, aren't we?
Never when you want it, never when you need it.
Lord.
Have you ever abused your position?
Well, no one knows.
Have you jumped the queue at the library?
You must have done it.
About 2 months ago, there's a restaurant in Richmond called Coat. Mid-range, not that flash.
They do a lovely steak tartare.
They do, as a starter.
Yeah.
And then steak frites for the main, if you're steak heavy that day. And me and my wife got there, and it's very rarely full. And the manager said, look, we're really, really sorry, fully booked all night. And my wife went, why don't you tell him that you have a column at the Times? So I said, it might be a bit embarrassing. I said, look, my name's Matthew Syed. I'm a columnist at the Times newspaper.
You said that?
Yeah. And he went, and? And I went, yeah, good point. It went out with my tail between my legs. There's nothing worse than actually trying to use your influence.
I think we all do it.
But me, absolutely zero.
I did
no
it on a
effect
pre-season
whatsoever.
trip with Lancashire once. We were flying back, and we're getting the boarding cards from the Emirates person, and we're all in economy, aren't we? So I was done joking, and I got my boarding card, and I said to the steward, there's a bit of a mistake here. He says, what's wrong, Mr. Flintoff? I said, it seems to be economy. I wasn't even joking, playing to the crowd, and he went back and wrote me a business class one. So I felt bad for about 30 seconds. All the lads were at the back, and I was sat in the front sipping champagne.
So I think we do abuse our positions, but I think on the TV, abusing your position, I think, is completely and utterly wrong.
And if Jeff Stelling, you want to tweet us, use the hashtag FredSavSide.
He's
Thanks,
a good
everyone.
Bloke, Matthew. He's a good bloke.
A big fan of Jeff
I think we all agree,
Stelling.
great presenter.
Yeah, but
fantastic show.
That crossed the line for me.
Thank you for listening. You can download the podcast for an extended version of the topics we've covered on this week's show at the 5 Live website and all the usual podcast places. Please use the hashtag FredSavSide to get in touch with us through the week. If you could leave a review on iTunes and give us a rating, that would be fantastic. Thanks for everyone who's done that already. We'll be back at the same time next week. But for now, from all of us, goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Thank you for downloading this Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy podcast. Make sure you subscribe to receive the latest episodes automatically to your device every single week. And if you like this, then why not have a look at what else 5 Live has to offer at bbc.co.uk/5live.